How about we raise the bar in 2021 and go for being leaders of distinction? Welcome to Business Without Barriers, the show bringing you relevant strategies to thrive and succeed in a volatile world, and the show turning barriers into bridges by bringing humanity back to business. I'm your host, Carmen Wilde, and opening up his success vault today is Onyi Anyado. Onyi is a multiple award-winning global leadership speaker, entrepreneur, business coach, and author. His latest book is The Doorway to Distinction, 200 quotes to inspire you to reach new levels of excellence. He delivers his message on how to become distinguished in your field via workshops, talks, coaching, and training sessions around the world. Onyi moved from living the street life to being fondly referred to as Mr. Distinction, and now challenges his community and his generation to maximize their full potential, reach new levels of excellence, and become a people of distinction. He's living proof that no matter what circumstances you were born into, you can break through the barriers to live a life of excellence. It's so awesome to have you on the show today. A very, very warm welcome to you, Onyi.
Thank you, Carmen. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the wonderful introduction too. Very much appreciated.
It's a pleasure. And coming out of London today, I'm in Mauritius. Onyi's in London. He looks like he should be in Mauritius. I look like I should be in London.
I have to be in the. I have to shirt, green shirt, yellow shirt, pink shirt. I have to be.
We'll make it happen when, like you said, when the airways are open again.
Yes.
So, talking about creating happy memories, if you were to scan your happiest moments in your life, if you were to just go over those, what stands out for you as the happiest memory? Which one pops to mind, and describe the scene for us? Wow.
Well, as you've answered the question, the first thing that came to my mind as you were speaking was when I was a young boy, I'm not sure how old I was sitting in my dad's car in the driving seat, and he was fixing something under the bonnet, and I bibbed the horn, and his head hit the bonnet, and he looked at me. I thought he was going to be angry, and he just started laughing. And I started laughing, and that's one of my most happiest memories. Because I mean, I'll share with you later, but I didn't know my dad for like 25 years, so that was one of my happiest, interesting memories I had of him. And as you mentioned it, it just came to my heart now.
It's interesting how the mind goes in search for something like that.
Yes.
And the assertion that trigger happens somehow, and something like that pops to mind. Thank you for sharing that with us. We're living in one of the most disruptive and interesting and fascinating decades in human history. What excites you about this disruptive decade we're in?
Yes, so many things in particular. So from 2016, 17, 18, I began writing and speaking about creative distinction. Not in a million years, I knew that I've now called the 2020s the era of creative distinction. So for me, of course, this is one of the most interesting, disruptive, for some people scary, but certainly this is a decade of such delivering value-driven disruption, creative distinction on local, national and global on platforms. So for me, this is the era of creative distinction. It's value-driven distinction, value-driven disruption, and being value-driven in every aspect.
So take us a little bit into your mind when you say creative distinction.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what you mean by that.
Yeah. So, for example, when I first came in the industry, I promised myself two things. So I'm a global leadership speaker. One, I would never call myself a motivational speaker. There's nothing wrong with that. But at the time in my community, there were so many motivational speakers saying the same thing. And two, I would never quote anyone, but rather I'd be continually quoted. So I said that I think maybe 2014, 13. not knowing that now the world is looking for individuals, institutions, organizations that are bringing something new to the table, something cutting edge, something distinguished, something creative, something that's never been seen before or heard before, or something that has been seen before, but you're adding your own creative distinction to it. So for me, it's about creating and producing what someone hasn't created or produced before, or what someone has created or produced before. You're putting your own distinctive solution and signature on it.
So it's a sort of a spiced up version of innovation.
Yes, yeah, most definitely. And we've seen with the lockdown and coronavirus that we've got no choice now but to be creatively distinctive.
Yeah, exactly. And I really like the term. So you spoke about disruption, and a number of years ago, you created your own disruption in your life by making what you refer to the breakthrough from detention to distinction. And that's where it all started for you. Tell us about the watershed moment when you realize, as per one of your quotes, if average is a poison, distinction is the remedy.
Wow. I first penned that in, you're going way back to the future now. I penned that in, I think, 2012, 13. So just to hear it now is like, wow, that's a reference point. Well, I think I've had many watershed moments, but I think for me, I realized that I'm called to be a voice. I'm called to be a blessing. I'm called to be a light, a solution. You know, I've lived a very interesting life, from detention to distinction, a whole street life, you know, going to prison twice, 6 of my friends getting murdered, dropping out of university. But I just knew, you know, one of the greatest songs of all time by Labi Safi, something inside so strong. I knew in my Noah that there was something inside of me which was going to help humanity, bless humanity, change humanity, whatever you want to describe it as. And so, yeah, so on the 2nd of November, 2008, I became a born again Christian, and my journey started from there. I mean, I always wanted to become a counselor anyway, but then I went back to adult college, got some level 1, level 2 counseling qualifications. And then it was just an evolution of my gifts, my talents, and my passion. And literally it was full steam ahead. So I remember going back to adult college, which was hard after maybe 10 years of not being in education. And it was really difficult, but I just wanted to become a counselor, you know, and so I knew I had to go through the process. But then when I realized, I found out about life coaching and speaking, it was like, wow, okay, this is what I think I'm called to do. And it was just full steam ahead, even though sometimes the steam train collapsed anyway. But hey, part of our journey.
You know, you've skimmed through so much. I mean, you've taken so many very significant episodes in your life, and you steamrolled through all of those. So I want to go back, because there's something that's very distinctive about you, Onyi, and your absolute authenticity and your willingness to be so open is so refreshing, and it's what this world needs so much more of. You say you went to prison twice. Tell us about the conditions. So we could also have a picture of the turnaround that you've experienced in your life to be able to bring this message of distinction. It's not something that you just dreamt up overnight that, oh, this would be a cool message to, you know, as a creative message. It was born out of being on the streets. And that's very significant. And while not everybody is on the streets, in a lot of ways, people feel like they're out on the street, not knowing which way to go. They don't have direction. They're lost at the moment. They, you know, in so many ways. So draw that distinction for us in terms of what was that life truly like. And then I would also like you to just touch on what goes on in your mind when you're sitting in prison, and then coming out of that, those phases, please.
Fantastic. So to go kind of back, so I was in Middlesex University, which is in North London, studying management and marketing. You know, I was a young man coming from a Nigerian background. My mum wanted me to become a doctor, lawyer, or pharmacist, but of course, I mean, I didn't know what that meant in that sense. So I was studying management and marketing. At the time, university was an open moment for me. I mean, being born and raised in East London, So London has 4 parts: North London, South London, East London, West London. All my friends were black. But when I got to university, I had white friends, Chinese friends, Indian friends. So it was a real awakening. Unfortunately, when I got to the second year, at the time, I was the only one out of my friends from Hackney that was at university. And so I ended up dropping out and then begin living a lifestyle, you know, of not really gangs, but young men on the streets of East London or the streets of London, up to no good. I wasn't really a bad boy. I was just a young man with no dream, no direction, no purpose. Of course, no father figure. Then I ended up going into prison. You know, I'm eternally grateful. I thank God that it wasn't serious. It wasn't, you know, anything to do with sex, drugs, violence, murder, nothing like that. It was just fighting. And so it was the first time I went, it was a shock. I mean, at worst, I thought I was going to get like, you know, community service or a rap on the fist, because it wasn't really but because there's quite a few people involved. And it was a shock to my system. I was like, hold on a minute. I mean, I'm a university student. I mean, I'm not really a bad boy. So, and I will never glorify prison, of course. But I remember being in prison, and honestly, it sounds a bit weird, but it was fun. I will never forget. There was a prison guard. I know it sounds, you know, please note to the listeners around the world, I'm not glorifying it in any shape or form, but I remember a prison guard saying to me, and they call you by your surname. So he was like, Anyado, I've been watching you for the last few weeks. Why are you always happy? And I was like, sorry? He said, yeah, you're always happy. You're always laughing. You're always cracking joke. What is it? And I was like, I don't know. And it made me think like, I'm in prison and I'm just happy, it's whatever. You're going home at the end of every day, but you don't seem to be happy like I am happy. And that was awakening. In prison, I would read so many books. I remember one particular time I'll get like 6 newspapers. I'd read 3 books a week. And a prison officer, another one, said to me, Anyado, you're not meant to be in here, you know. And I was like, because you don't hear them say that. And I was like, wow, you know. And so I came out, but again, nothing really changed. I was still living that street life. Then I went back again. And the second time I vowed I would never go back, because the conditions was not inhuman, but it was bad. I mean, there's certain prisons in some parts of Africa, in America, even in the north of England, you wouldn't want to go to. But the particular prison I went to was in London. It was horrible. It was really, really horrible. And I said, like, nah, I can't be going back there. And at that time, there was a lot of like gang. I wasn't really involved in it, but I had main enemies there. So I was very cautious in prison, knowing that, okay, I've got some enemies of enemies in here that, you know, it can be very dangerous. So I had to be more careful. And I think at that time, funny enough, the first time I was in prison, my friends, quote unquote, that I was in prison with, one of them, or they ended up nearly shooting me dead. So the second time I was in prison, I was with their people. So it was like, I was very cautious that this time now I'm surrounded by a real enemy. So I came out again, and again, I didn't have no purpose. All I know, I wanted to become a counselor, but I was fed up of the street life. I was fed up of the shootouts. I was fed up of going to prison. I was fed up of living that life, that empty life that, you know, my own cousins turned on me, my own friends tried to kill me. It was like, oh my gosh, what's going on, man? Is this a movie? Is this Scarface? Is this The Godfather? You know, but I didn't know how to come out. I was just, and you know, I wasn't depressed or anything like that, but I was just fed up. I just knew in my heart that I'm better than this. I know. I didn't know what it was, but I just knew that, nah, there's something, as Labi Safi said, there's something inside so strong.
So what helped you see or make this shift? Was there something? What happened that shifted you?
So, cut a long story short, for that part, I don't want to say too much, but yeah, so my cousins, they they deserted me because I was helping them out for a particular year, living in their house, helping them pay the rent. Next thing they knew, Onyi didn't do nothing for me, get out of the house. I was like, So I ended up being homeless, living in a hotel for 3 days, not a nice hotel. My skin after 2 days just went, and I said, look, enough is enough, man. I can't be living like some whatever. So I remember it was in Essex, which is outside of London, driving into London, say, okay, let me go to church. And it's quite ironic, even though I was a quote unquote bad boy or street guy, sometimes if I wasn't drunk or hungover or whatever, I would go to church. So that morning I said, look, I don't know where else to turn. I don't know what else to do, but I can't be living like this. No way. So I ended up driving and end up going to a church. I'm just sitting down there, and I remember, I'll never forget, the pastor said, be a warrior, never give up. And I'm sitting down listening, I'm thinking, this man's talking to me here, because like, all right, you know what I mean? So it was a supernatural. That day, the 2nd of November, I gave my life to Christ, became a born again Christian. And then it was interesting. I found a community. I found a quote unquote family. I mean, I had my mom and my sister, but I wasn't in good relationships with my mom. But then I realized that, wow, I've got a whole new community now. And so it was interesting. Before I knew it, I mean, I was doing like one service, like a 7 o'clock service. Within 3 months, I was doing a 7 o'clock service, 9 o'clock service, 11 o'clock service, 1 o'clock service, evening service. All Sunday, I was there all day because I found my purpose. I found a reason for living. I found love. I found a family, quote unquote. And then from then, of course, I still want to become a counselor, and being in that community with newfound friends, I had to better myself because I can't just be a layabout. I went back to college. Then again, my pastor said something. He said, whatever you do in life, always network. I was like, wow, okay. So I Googled counseling networking events, but life coaching came up instead. So I said, okay, let me go to I went to a 2-day, what do you call it? A 2-day, like an opening. So they tell you about life coaching, what it costs, what it is, etc., etc. But of course, at the end of the 2 days, they sell you the program. And the cheapest program, I think, was £4,000. At the time, I didn't have £4 to my name. So I took a step of faith, opened my first business. Within 6 months, my first video actually was on YouTube. I'd done a workshop. Your Time Is Now, under 23 special. And then from then, it was an evolution of my gifts, my talents, my passion. Came up with a brand of Distinction. And I think by 2015 odd, it became Cutting Edge Distinction. And then from then, it was literally, I began doing the educational field, schools, colleges, universities, began speaking internationally. And then by 2017, 18, I knew the shift is coming. So I shifted my brand message, my value to become now more global leadership distinction. So now I'm a global leadership speaker, futurist, and corporate trainer. And my legacy is titled From Detention to Distinction. So in 2014, I done a TEDx. And it was interesting, Carmen. I was going to call it From Victim to Visionary, From Lifeless to Life Coach, and From the Doldrums to Distinction. But of course, that's too long. And I just thinking, okay, what can I call my TED Talks? And it was just literally From Detention to Distinction, and the rest is history.
What an incredible story and powerful words, detention to distinction. I mean, you went absolutely with the right messaging there, because it's strong, it's honest, it's there's a rawness in it, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for those stories, because life is not all pretty. Life is not for sissies, that's for sure. And when we have these stories, I can just see I can just see how that story became. You named your book Doorway to Distinction. Became the doorway, and incredible that you've had the courage to actually, because so many people would have actually tried to bury that story, but you've actually created that as a bedrock, and that takes great courage. So what would you say, Onyi, is one of the great lessons that you carry with you in your heart from having made this gigantic leap from street life to where you are now? What's a lesson that comes to mind that's really important for you?
Wow. Every general, every commander has to go through war. Every general, every commander has to go through war. Has to.
So now a young person might be listening to that. And if someone had said that to you before, I'm just wondering how. Yes, and I totally get you, and I hear you, and I've had this kind of conversation with one of my clients. Actually asked me about her staff member. She said, he's come from privilege, I'm not sure that he can become a good leader because he's not understood struggle. And you're kind of saying the same thing. So what happens with the person who's kind of had a sort of mediocre, maybe it's not cushy or privilege, but it's kind of not been war. Do you think that they can still become a general of distinction?
Yes, certainly. And so when I'm talking about war, I'm not talking about, World War V or whatever. I'm talking about war against yourself, war against your people, war against society, war against doubt, war against mediocrity. Okay. So a person that's born in quote unquote privilege, they have to realize. And so from one of my insights on cutting edge leadership, I said that distinction in leadership isn't about me, myself, and I. Distinction in leadership is about him, her, and them. Distinction in leadership isn't about me, myself, and I. Unfortunately, society makes us very self-centered. Gimme, gimme, gimme. My name is Jimmy. If your name is Jimmy, I'm not talking about you. Please, no offense taken or given. So society makes us very self-centered. It's all about me, my house, my car, my marriage, my money, my. But the essence of cutting-edge leadership is to be selfless, serving with your vision, serving with your values, serving with your voice. So, I mean, I went from detention to distinction. So obviously, someone can go from privilege to promotion or privilege to positional leadership, but they have to realize it's about being selfless, and it's not about me, myself, and I, but rather it's about him, her, and them. And who is them? Those that are in the shadows, fearful of coming out. Those who are in shadows don't believe in themselves. Those in the shadow are happy in the comfort zone. Those in the shadow are very selfless. Me.
Okay. Great distinction there in terms of what the war is that you're talking about, and hell, there is the greatest raging war within us. I think that is the greatest war we fight on this planet, isn't it?
Yes.
So when you made this transition, when I mean, you found your community in the church, you started reading and doing these amazing things. What for you was one of the greatest barriers, where as you found your feet and now staying in the game, because you got into the game, you got to stay the game now. What would you say was one of the greatest barriers there?
Definitely 100%, 1,000,000%, 10 billion% finances, the money side of it. I mean, that one is and not so much a lack of money, but having the money to, have that freedom of it, and then not trying to, definitely the financial side of it. But I mean, that's made me who I am today. But yeah, the financial side of it was difficult. Yeah, it was really it was really difficult.
So and it's difficult in the sense of, because you become obsessive with trying to attain it or achieve it or earn it, or just because everything becomes a struggle if you don't have it. What was it for you?
Yeah, the last part, definitely the struggle of not even having the basic, day-to-day kind of thing. I mean, there was a times when, even though I'm in the UK, I'll be looking for a job, whatever. I couldn't afford 20p spaghetti. But I suppose that made me resilient. Carmen, I remember one time I was so hungry, man. I didn't have nothing in my house. So I was looking around, I found like 3p in my house, the English currency. I had 18 pence. I'm not sure what the equivalent is in Mauritius, but 18 pence. I had to go to my building society and ask for 18p. And I never get the woman that served me, she was like, how much? I said 18p. So less than $1, you might as well say, like, 70 cents or whatever. I was like, 18p, please. She was looking at me like, really? I was like, yeah, really, I'm hungry, please. You know what I mean? I need to go to Tesco, supermarket, and buy. So that was the biggest barrier, because when I look back now, there's certain things I couldn't do at the time when I needed to do. But then when I'm looking back in hindsight and realizing that what I couldn't do then maybe wasn't necessarily the right time, because now I'm doing it now, and even more so. But yeah, the biggest barrier, was the finances. But I mean, after a while, I got a job in the church anyway. I became a marketing assistant or something like that. So that kind of helped, because whatever happens, if I'm going to publish a book, I need money. Self-publish a book, I need money. To go out and speak, I need to dress up in a way. So yeah, at one stage, definitely 100% the financial side of it, not having enough.
So in those moments when finances are such a barrier, how important is creative distinction then?
100%. I learned how to save. I learned how to, manage. I learned how to cook and be satisfied and not be hungry. So it's very important. I look back and laugh now in hindsight, and I suppose that made me who I am today because, in my pain, in my purpose, integrity was born. Integrity had to be born, because if not, what happens when I become a multimillionaire? Am I going to become arrogant and prideful? Or I'm going to remember where I actually came from and realize the journey, I didn't get here by luck or by chance or by privilege. It was sheer smart work, grace, and hard work.
I want to read one of your quotes.
Okay.
Our deep-rooted fear is not we are average, but our deepest fear is we are people of excellence. It's our distinction, not mediocrity, that really frightens us. You may ask yourself how I become a person of distinction. The answer lies in the fact that you were not created to blend in, but rather you were created to stand out and be a blessing to your generation. So, what do you think there's merit to us becoming a person of distinction and moving through this kind of transition that you made? What do you think is gripping people in so much fear about moving into that space?
Wow. Carmen, even just listen to that quote, and I remember I penned it in 2011/12. It's interesting that it's still relevant in 2021. It's you actually made me think. I was like, did I actually write that? Like, wow, like it's the fear of the unknown. It's the fear of the unknown. It's the fear of the new. It's the fear of the next level. But I've always asked people, how can you be scared of something you haven't seen yet? Or how can you be scared of something that you haven't grabbed yet? And unfortunately, particularly growing up in London, that generation, even I've done quite a lot of work in schools. I noticed that even teachers would, if you're too bright or too confident, they'll try and limit your, and sometimes that's instilled in us. I'm coming from a Nigerian background. My mom and dad, they're the best in the world, but my mom was like, be a doctor, lawyer, or pharmacist. It was like, and that was a generation of Nigerians or West Africans. And so they will limit your potential, that if you don't become a doctor, lawyer, pharmacist, you can't be successful, even though they're successful doctor, lawyer, and pharmacist. So it's a combination of society, of family upbringing, and the fear of the unknown. The fear of the unknown. But how can you be a fear of unknown when you haven't seen it, you don't even believe it, or you haven't touched it?
I mean, you threw yourself totally into that unknown. Yet you had such a driver, you'd seen the other side of it. So you went for gold, away from that pain that you were experiencing. And I think that's coming back to the war that you're speaking about. Is it seems like we've been molded in such a way that we reach levels of pain, which then catapults us to that place of distinction, or at least striving towards it. There's another brilliant, your quotes are brilliant. Such a big fear as well is fear of competition. So it's the unknown, and then it's competition. So but a quote from your book: there is no room for competition on the journey to excellence. When you walk in distinction, even the photocopying machine can't replicate your unique quality.
Oh my God. Wow. I actually wrote that. My gosh. That's wow. And by the way, Carmen, I'm looking forward to my 5-star review on Amazon, by the way. So, I'll just put it out there. Wow. Yeah. Even the photocopy machine can't replicate. Yeah. It's interesting. As I said, coming into my industry, particularly in my community where I was, and how I developed, competition was, it was too obvious that everyone was competing with everyone for the same spot. So it's like when you find your distinction in your distinction. So I knew that my distinction in my distinctions, I'm not going to call myself a motivational speaker, nothing wrong with that. I'm not going to quote anyone, but rather I'm going to be quoted. When you find your distinction in your distinction, you're at peace. Yes, you recognize other speakers or other coaches, but you embrace them, you celebrate them, you learn from them, but you're not in competition because you found your distinction in your distinction. And once you do that, the number one person you have to beat is yourself. You know, because people always ask me, oh, not now, but a few years back, oh, who's your competition? I was like, I'm not just in business, I'm in legacy. And when you're in legacy, you can't compete with anyone because it's more than business, it's more than making money, it's more than bringing value, it's the legacy. I'm living my legacy and leaving my legacy. And so when I found my distinction in my distinction, and the photocopy machine has to now photocopy me and use me as a reference point.
I love that. So it brings home the truth of being authentic, because that's the only place we're going to find our true distinction, is being so truly true to self. Because if you are, well, who can compete with that? So when I saw that quote, I thought, well, I have to use that one. That's brilliant. The other one as well, which is really stood out for me, was that if average is a poison, distinction is the remedy.
Yes, it is.
That's really poignant. So help us a little, and you've studied this area. If so many people have enormous potential, but they haven't, maybe it's not even about, the fear of the unknown or competition. Maybe they just don't know what the area of distinction is. Is there a few tips that people you can share for people to start narrowing it down, to identify what that specific area is?
Yes, definitely, most definitely. So in 2015, I'm sure the listeners are saying, hold on, it keeps going back to the time, because I realized that's when I put the work in for the 2020s and beyond. So 2015, I created a concept, a GTP concept: your gifts, your talents, and your passion. So your gift is something you're naturally good at. I can't draw, but there's some people that can naturally draw, and you can make a profession out of it. You could be a town planner, etc., etc. So your gifts, something you can naturally do, So I can't play a musical instrument. I remember in secondary school, a friend of mine, he was a fantastic drummer, and now he's a professional global drummer. He drums around the world. So it's your gift, something you have to, I don't listen to rap music anymore, but Tupac said it best: even a genius asks his questions. So as an individual, you now have to, after watching this and hearing myself and Carmen, you have to say, okay, what's my gift? What can I naturally do? So your gift, your talent is an evolution of your gifts. So I realized, looking back at my life, I've always been a good communicator. I've always been a people person. But my talent now was developed as being a speaker, a coach, a trainer, because I wanted to become a counselor. And my passion, every human being's got a passion. My passion, when I look back in hindsight and even in foresight and farsight, is people. I've always been a people person. I've always had the gift of the gab. I've always been a good speaker. I've always been a speaker. So my gifts, naturally what I can do, which was literally my best subject in school was drama. So I was very outgoing. And so that's my gift. I was always liked writing. I always liked speaking. My talent now is an evolution of my gifts, and combine that with your passion. That's your vision, so to say. Some people are fantastic with numbers. Some people are really good at calculating numbers. So you can be an accountant, you could be a financial advisor, so many things. So your GTP, your gifts, your talents, and your passion. And you have to ask yourself a question: what am I good at? If whoever came and said, hey, you could do 5 jobs in the world, what would the 5 jobs you would do? You list them and you say, okay, how does my gifts, my talents, and my passion now tie into each one? And before you know it, you broke it down into 2 or 3 jobs. And then there you have your focus, your focus, your focus. It's no accident I always wanted to become a counselor. And now I'm still counseling people through my words of distinction and my strategy of cutting edge leadership. So your gifts, your talents, and your passion.
Thank you for making it so practical. That's a nice cues for us to start with. You also say that you believe if you build a brand, and knowing you, it would be not any brand, a brand of distinction, the market will come.
Yes.
So tell us a bit more about that.
Fantastic. So in 2016, now let's be specific, I knew by revelation that a shift is coming. I knew, of course, I didn't know it was coronavirus, but I just knew, I sensed something was coming. November 2019, I said the global recession is coming. I put it in I'm like 8 WhatsApp groups. I put it in a WhatsApp group. So between 16 and 18, I knew that here in the UK, every time they cut the budget, they always cut money in education. So I do a lot of workshops in schools and all that. So I knew that I had to pivot. So for 3 or 2 years, about 2 or 3 years, I began building a brand for a global market, a global audience. And that global audience obviously would be management, leaders, and organizations. So I built a brand, and the first brand I built was for young people. You know, I'm a speaker, keynote speaker, working with young people. Knowing that a shift is coming, I had to now build on that platform and build my brand again for my future market, which was organizations, managers, and leaders. So when I built a brand and the market will come, now organization, there's leadership problems, there's disruptions. Now organization and management, they're looking for tangible solutions, how we can lead in the next 10, 15, 20 years. So who's going to be one of the people they're going to call? Is myself. Because I knew I had to now build the brand for my future market. I couldn't build a brand for schools and universities because they've got no money and my capacity has already gone past that level. So I now had to build a brand for the future market, which is the now market, which is organizations and managers, knowing that organizations now more than ever before need tangible solutions. So build a brand and the market will come because they're not, what are they coming to? They're coming to my vision, my values, and my voice. So I had to create the 3 V's of organizational branding. So I'm looking from the inside out and from the outside in. So when you build a brand for the market to come, you're building your brand for yourself, but you're also building a brand for your future market, which is the now market.
Yes. So it also requires that you are very conscious of what is going on and ear close to the ground, looking for those opportunities that are to come. And you kind of get in ahead of the curve to build that. And then if you do have now you have a brand, it's about, okay, so what's that next wave of problem that you would solve for this particular market that you're in? There's another quote that you said, the truth about excellence is that it cannot lie. I love that because what we need so much more of on our planet is more standards of truth and excellence. How different would our world be if we just did not tolerate anything but truth and excellence?
Yeah. Definitely Africa would change. Africa would change as a continent and as individual countries. It literally would change. But as you said, there's no excellence and there's no truth in it. And the lack of that is just mediocrity. And we're seeing that. We're seeing that. We're even seeing that with, unfortunately now in the current climate we're in, particularly my government or the UK government, the lack of truth, integrity, and excellence. It's just one message now, one message another. There's no clarity. There's no distinction. It's dangerous. So when I'm talking about excellence, and I love how you mentioned truth, and I love what you actually said, because now you're making me think. It's not just about doing things correctly, make sure there's no spelling mistake. That's important. But as you mentioned, it's also about truth, which is integrity, which is making sure things are done in a correct manner, in a correct order.
What do you think we need? I know it's a bit of a philosophical question, but What do you think, as a man who thinks about distinction, we need to get our more people into this bracket of truth and excellence and raising the bar?
Yeah, it's every 10 years or every 15 years, there's always some kind of movement. There's always a kind of a push. So I think me, myself, and many others now are joining that new wave of let's do things different. Let's do things with truth, with integrity, with excellence. Let's become more solution based rather than problem. Let's become more solution based rather than problems and problems and problems. So I think I took up the baton, so let me run with it, and now I'm passing it to other people. It's just a movement that's surely going to get bigger. That after a while, it becomes a way of life.
Yeah, so it's a solution movements. We need more movements that are about solutions and moving and taking up this change maker baton and us influencing each other is what I'm hearing you say.
Yes.
There's another quote of yours that I love as well. Become so disciplined that even your distractions become focused.
Yes. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, that one. Oh my God, we're living in a time, it's the era of creative distinction, but more so than ever before, there's distractions. I mean, a mobile phone is a distraction if we're not careful. So when you become so focused and so disciplined that even the very thing that was meant to distract you now becomes a source of discipline, dedication, and discernment. So yeah, that was one of my ones that every time you read it to me in my car, I just chuckle inside. I'm like, what, did I actually write that? Well, I did write that. So,
Does the alliteration just like rolls off you're so used to, you're so schooled in it, or you've schooled yourself in it, that what did you say, discernment,
dedication, and discipline.
Wow, I mean, it just rolls off your tongue. It's incredible. So what do you do to make your distractions be focused? What do you do to stay focused? Is there something that you have learned to help you with that?
Yeah, it's a very fantastic question. Definitely seeing the end goal, the end vision of it, the end goal, the end objective, knowing that if I remain distracted or if I become distracted, that end goal will take longer to achieve than what I wanted to. So, of course, we're all humans, we can get distracted, but I always look at the end goal, and where I am is not where I'm meant to be. There's always a next level and a next level, and I can't get there by being so distracted or making distractions a way of life. So yeah, I focus on the end goal, remind myself that where I've come from, that this is not the next level, this is not the level, and it's definitely a next level to come. And I love it because I challenge myself. I know when to rest, but at the same time, I know when to focus. So yeah.
So you wrote another book around targets, right?
Yes. So my first book, Hitting the Target, a 12-month guide to distinction. And that was 2011, and in 2012, The Doorway to Distinction.
So tell us how important, or give us a little bit of your thoughts around having these goals and having those targets, and why it's not just like a list making exercise, but the importance of those clear targets.
Yes, it's so important, particularly nowadays anyway, that you have something that you're aiming for, whether it's a short-term, mid-term, long-term goal. It gives you that excitement, that joy, that discipline, that focus to say, hey, this is my goal for the day, for the week, for the month. And then you take baby steps to achieve it. And it builds your resilience, it builds your character, it builds your discernment, it builds your understanding, and it makes you a more complete leader. So goals are so important, particularly when you write them down. And even if you've got a 5-year goal for say 2021, for 2026, you can go to the future and say, hey, by 2025, if all things are equal, I would have achieved that. So every day you're going step by step. Even if you fall down, or even if you make a mistake, or even if things are not working out, you remember, hey, there's a future goal I need to achieve. Stay focused. Because at the time I knew that I'm going to be speaking around the world. I knew it, but where I was living at my mum's house. I didn't have no money, but that was a future goal. So I had to stay focused every day, do something to achieve, get towards that goal. And now I'm here. So yeah, goals are so important. It gives you that sense of fulfillment as well, where you can pat yourself on the back and say, hey, today I achieved this. Last month I achieved that. Next year I'm looking to achieve this. It gives you that sense of fulfillment.
And is there a particular way that you prefer to do this? Do you write it? Do you type it? How often works for you, for instance?
Yeah, so it's that's a very good question. So different strokes for different folks. I write it sometimes, but I've got one of them brains where I know that, for example, today's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. These are the 3 goals I have to achieve, or 4 goals, whatever the goals are, and I just aim for it and I hit it, and I hit my target. So I once in a while I do write it, but I'm more for long-term or mid-term goals. But short-term goals, I've got one of them brains where I know the night before Tuesday, I know I've got to achieve. Let's do it.
Okay, so you literally make setting daily goals for yourself.
It depends, isn't it? It depends what the circumstance is, what needs to be done. Sometimes I don't have no goals to achieve, so to say, but sometimes I learn something new, and that's a goal I didn't mean to write, but I've achieved. So yeah.
Okay. What have you found? So you're talking about goals, because those are giving you compelling reasons. But if you look to your, what is that next big thing that you would love to see yourself achieving? And what's, because that's going to give you the compelling reason to take it to that next level of, because even within a distinction, there's a next level. So what does that look like for you? You know, what would you love to see?
Yeah, so when, it's happening now slowly but surely, but when people say we're looking for a global leadership speaker, we're looking for a corporate trainer, we're looking for a futurist, Onyi Anyado.
So you put yourself into the futurist bucket as well?
Yes, yeah. And that was by chance, may I say. That was just, because someone had said to me, you've got an eye for the future, haven't you? And I was like, huh? So I done my investigations and I realized, and then, thankfully there's proof and evidence of my role as a futurist. So it's not like, oh, I reckon, I think, that the evidence and trails there. So yeah.
Give us an idea, Onyi, from what your thoughts, what you read, what is it that we should, maybe 2 things. And I know I did ask you this right at the beginning, but if we look to the future and like that's just the next few years, because things are changing so rapidly, what should we prepare ourselves for, do you think? The greatest shift that you see is coming that we should prepare ourselves for?
100%, more than ever before. There's going to be more wealth. I don't want to say millionaires. Millionaires might not mean that much these days and age anyway, but there's going to be more, more multi-millionaires rising up, because they're the ones that's going to bring global solution, and that global solution will be on a national and a local level. So we're going to see more value-driven individuals, organizations rising up, and from them we're going to see more wealth. I think the middle class is going to disappear in the next 10 years, personally. So we're going to have the wealthy, and unfortunately, we're going to have the poor. But the wealthy, some of them are going to be unrecognizable. Where did you come from? Where was you? Well, I've been doing it for the last 10, 15 years. So definitely we're going to see a shift in the wealth, and the wealth is going to be going to the people that provide, or institutions that provide even more solutions. Certainly we're going to see more tech. I don't use the word giants, but more tech solutions coming out than ever before. So yeah, we've got Facebook, Amazon, Google, but we're going to see more on a local, national, and global level. So 2 shifts: wealth and tech.
So what does that mean for the small business, the one-man show, the entrepreneur? How do they gear themselves for this big shift if they're not in tech? And yeah. So what would you say? What kind of advice would you give them?
Begin to position yourself for your future market, because that's what I've done. So whoever your market is now, who could possibly be your future market? So begin to look, see, okay, if I'm not in tech, I'm selling clothes in wherever in London. Okay, can it only be clothes that you're selling? What else can you sell? Specifically, you may only sell clothes for toddlers now, and you may brand it in a way where you've now got your own distinction in your distinction. So where you generalize you selling clothes, now specifically you can say, I'm only going to sell clothes for toddlers. So you've already opened up a new market for yourself. Because remember, before coronavirus, my main focus was, education field, doing schools, colleges, universities. But when I saw a shift was coming, I said, okay, I'm still going to have to become a speaker. Let me now bring global solutions. And here I am now. So for example, if someone's selling a one-man show or one-woman show selling clothes, you can say, let me become even more specific. So I think the opportunities and possibilities are out there, but obviously you need to get a good coach like myself or Carmen that can even guide you to the next level. So I'm not saying you have to leave your industry, but in your industry, think about what else you can serve, what else you can create for a particular market.
Yes, it's the micro niche that you're speaking about, and then thinking ahead to and I mean everything you've spoken about, it's the distinction. In this overcrowded market, the only way that you're actually going to move forward and stay in the game is certainly value. Oh, definitely, absolutely value, and then delivering it in a way that is with distinction. So everything you've spoken about is would help no matter what size business you're in, actually, whether it's small or mega business, the value and the distinction is going to be there. And thinking ahead in terms of how you can serve your future customer. Maybe it's not even just your current customer. What would you say to date is your most cherished success?
Wow. Only one, or can I have like 25? Because I can speak.
You can have a few.
Okay. Excuse me. I'll give 3. So I'll give it in a particular order. So the first one would be self-publishing my first book. Yeah, that was a real next level, a real door opener, a real eye opener, a real achievement. That was So that was 2012. So that was my first one. And my second one was doing a TED Talks from Detention to Distinction. That really, can I say, established me as a recognized speaker in my sphere. That was really an eye opener. That the amount of recognition and respect I got was quite humbling and quite strategic too. And that gave me even more confidence. And then 3, again, that was in 2014, I think, my memory serves me right. I had my first ever international speaking engagement, and that was a youth conference in Canada. And that was an eye opener. That was like, wow. At the time I was living at my mum's house. I literally didn't have a lot of money, but they paid for me to go out. They drove me around. Of course, they paid me. And being in another country, I mean, I traveled before that, but as a first international speaking engagement, so self-publishing my first book, my TED Talks, and my first ever international talk as a speaker.
So what reason would you give to someone sitting on the fence where they have that potential and all these fears are still coming up, and the unknown is playing around in their minds? What reason would you give to just go for it, get off the fence, go for distinction? What are those reasons, those big reasons?
1, because you've got the potential to do it. A firework's not a firework until you light it. I think particularly in the UK, they celebrate, for whatever reason, Guy Fawkes Night. But you can spend $1,000 or £1,000 on fireworks. Until you light it, it's not a firework. 2, if an individual sits on that fence, the way things are going, a big company will come, knock down the fence and build buildings. So you've got no fence to sit on. 3, there's nothing better than a fulfilled life. Now, a fulfilled life you're not going to become a multimillionaire or be world famous. You may just be serving your community as well as serving the world. But that comes from that sense of fulfillment. And 4 is that you're living your legacy and leaving your legacy. And there's every opportunity to inspire other people to now live their legacy and leave their legacy too.
So there we go. Let's raise the bar. Let's go for distinction. Why settle for anything less when there's it's worth what we have to put, what we have to, the steps we have to go through, the journey is so worth it, because it just puts you into a completely different league, actually, when you're thinking like that. And like you so beautifully said, there is no competition there as such except for yourself when you're in that league. And then it's about winning that constant battle with self. But there's so many beautiful resources and people and around us to help us with that. So no reason to not go for being a person of distinction, or community, or organization. So thank you so much, Onyi, for what you've shared with us today, and for raising the bar so high for yourself and not settling so that you can bring this message to us. It's such a testimony of what is possible, which is beautiful inspiration. One last question: if you could share a really deeply meaningful message with the world, born out of your distinct experiences, what would you want to share?
Fantastic. Simply start local, think global, and constantly raise the bar of excellence. Start local, think global, and constantly raise the bar of excellence.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much for spending the time, investing the time to be here on BWB and sharing your experiences so that we can learn from it and spread the message. Thank you so much for being a person of distinction. Thank you, Onyi.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. And thank you for being a platform for people like myself to share, to sow, and to serve. So, I mean, I don't take what you're doing for lightly. You're making global, local, national, and global impact. So thank you, Carmen, for being a platform, for being a shoulder that many can stand on to see new opportunities and possibilities. So, I commend and I really salute your distinction and what you're doing around the world. So thank you.
It's a pleasure, absolute pleasure, and thank you. And to every single one of you that have shared this time with us, be a warrior, tap into the warrior within, and never give up on yourself, because there's gifts and talents waiting just to be explored and unleashed. And no matter what the circumstances, no matter how tough it gets, no matter how many times maybe you've fallen down or failed or been ridiculed or criticized, it doesn't matter. There is a place for you, and it's for you to tap in deeper than you ever have, because the world needs you. The world needs more of us raising the bar to become people of distinction, so that we can move our species forward, humanity forward, and save our planet and secure a beautiful future. So thank you for being with us, and until next time, lots of love.
Thank you, Carmen.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.